We heard from Bob Mueller, basically, the president is a liar, but he may not be a crook. And
let us understand, North Vietnam cannot defeat or humiliate the United States. Only Americans can do that.
All right, insert obligatory joke about how we don't know how to start our own podcast. The Moral Minority, episode 13. Now, we already used the Tom Woods one too many times.
The Moral Minority, episode 13, starts now.
That's a definite maybe, Dan. Yes,
so no.
By popular demand, Dan has gotten a new microphone, and it has...
But I can only talk like this.
Yes, it has some features that he's been eager to try out. So, it's episode 13 of The Moral Minority, folks, and I am your not-so-homo correspondent, Marcel, and this is our co-host, Dan. Say hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan, indeed. You know the usual: Democrats, Orange Man, Libertarians, the media, clown world. So let's talk about the Democrats. This is a story that apparently, Dan, you said the whole world is getting this story wrong. Bernie Sanders has announced that it will be cutting the hours of its staffers in order to pay them a $15 minimum wage. To me, this story, you don't even need to read the article. The headline, I think, is enough. But of course, that is how smooth-brained people think. So what am I missing about the story, Dan?
Oh, the only thing you're missing, it's not really much, is that I'm seeing conservatives and libertarians and people who are generally anti-minimum wage and anti-Bernie. They're using this to show that this proves that hiking minimum wages cuts hours. But my understanding was the Bernie campaign was not saying, we will cut your hours because we can't pay you more. It's that the people are paid by salary in his campaign. And they were saying, based on the number of hours we work, when you do that math, it is as if we were getting paid X amount hourly, and it was below 15. And they were saying, okay, so we will adjust your hours so that it will raise it up to eliminate that complaint.
Oh, so they're getting paid the same amount.
Yes.
Like nobody's walking home with less money. They're just working less.
Yes.
Okay.
So, this case doesn't prove or disprove anything about the minimum wage. My point is just they're taking too much of a victory lap on this, because there is a victory lap to be taken, obviously. Bernie campaigns for the living wage. His people don't get paid that wage. They very geniusly used it to their advantage in the media to get a raise. But, I mean, the idea that, Bernie's giving his people 15, so now he has to cut their hours, that's not really what happened. What really seems to have happened, it was a negotiation between them where they said, for the salary you're paying us, it's like we're getting 13 an hour. And then they said, well, how about we cut your hours so that way, you'll still get the same salary, but you won't have to work as many hours. And everyone said, okay.
Yeah, leisure is a consumer good.
Yeah,
and so if you just cut the denominator, then
and we know that people who are Bernie fans, for them, leisure is maybe the most important consumer good.
Right.
There's nothing those lazy assholes love more than sitting around and bitching.
Which, the two of us would never do. So let's bitch about something else.
Yeah.
This was one of the dominant stories of the past few weeks. Surprisingly, the media was able to focus on this one for about, 5 whole days. So Donald Trump is going toe-to-toe with the Squad. The Squad consists of 4 female representatives of color: Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and some black chick. I legitimately do not remember her name. It doesn't matter. Really, the Squad, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. But in particular, this member doesn't matter. Donald Trump, having not learned his lesson, and really the Republican Party having not learned his lesson, is attempting to elevate these 4 newly minted congresswomen as the face of the Democratic Party to make them easier to attack. It's sort of a Pied Piper strategy, if you will, where if you just elevate the goofball, then when you're going up against the goofball, then you win easily. It's an excellent strategy that has literally never failed. It certainly has never failed in the living memory of Donald Trump.
This was maybe one of the most brilliant Trump plays ever. Do you disagree with that?
Yes, I strongly disagree.
How is this not a brilliant Trump play?
Because the Pied Piper strategy doesn't work. That's why Donald Trump is president.
How doesn't it work? You think Ilhan Omar is going to be president?
I mean, at her current rate of income growth, we can expect Ilhan Omar to be the richest woman on the face of the earth.
AOC is going to be president?
No, I suppose they won't become president.
They both could become president. Do you think they will become president in the 2020 election?
No.
Exactly. He just, in one volley or flurry, or whatever you want to call it, of tweets, he was able to make the entire. Do you remember what the topic was, by the way, 4 seconds before he fired send on that tweet?
Nope.
ICE raids.
Oh, yes.
He was Hitler. He was going. This was it. This was the stormtroopers hitting the road. They were pulling people out of their houses. This was the American Kristallnacht, I guess. And then Trump presumably put his feet up on the desk in the Oval Office and turned to somebody and said, "Watch this." Hit send, and suddenly CNN explodes and says, "Bad man, orange man bad, Trump racist, etc." Now, the strategy worked brilliantly, because what did he lose? Nothing. What did he even risk? Nothing. The people who think he's racist think the tweet's racist. Shocker, they think everything he does is racist. And the people who like him, nobody said, I was a Trump guy. This was one bridge too far. I can't do it. Can't do it.
We have forgotten one person. I'll throw this in the show notes. One person did think that the tweets were racist but useless. And that was a quintessential irrelevant person, Richard Spencer, who was brought onto, I believe it was Jake Tapper's show on CNN. And he spoke for 40 seconds about how...
agreed with them.
Yes, and he agreed that the tweet, he said...
He gives us nothing outside of racist tweets. And by racist tweets, I mean tweets that are meaningless and cheap and express the kind of sentiments you might hear from your drunk uncle while he's watching Hannity.
Isn't that funny how that works? Suddenly, Richard Spencer is given a platform to come on to CNN and agree with them.
Yeah, and agree with CNN. Like, is Trump racist? And Richard Spencer says yes.
And they go, "I'm glad we're on the same page."
I'm glad we're on the same page.
Spencer versus Trump.
I think Richard Spencer would know a little bit more about racism than Donald Trump would, because he invented it. It even said, like, how when you're on CNN, it always says, your name and then, what you with your writer.
Richard Spencer racist.
It said Richard Spencer white nationalist, but definitely if it said Richard Spencer racist, that would have been better.
Yeah, so what Donald Trump did was he looked at it appears he looked at the candidates running, and he said, "I don't really like this field. You know who I would like to run against? Ilhan Omar and AOC and these two other women who no one gives a fuck about. Really, that whole squad only exists because of AOC. It's AOC and then, like, her backup singers." And he said, what if I just pretended like they were running for president and everyone will believe it? And then he did that. And now, if you're Joe Biden, you go out on the campaign trail, and how long is it going to be until someone comes up to you and says, "Do you agree?" Because now they're fighting with Nancy Pelosi. "Do you agree with Nancy Pelosi in her racist comments about how the squad is, irrelevant or whatever? Or do you agree with the squad that says Nancy Pelosi is a racist? Or do you not agree with them?" It's like your two options are you can side with Nancy Pelosi, who has now been branded a racist by these 4 young women of color, or you can side with the 4 young women of color, the second most famous of whom has been publicly branded an anti-Semite.
Yes.
And the point is that if you're Joe Biden, or especially if you're Kamala Harris, this is not the conversation you want to be having. You want to have a conversation about Orange Man and whether or not he's bad and how bad he is. Trump just shook the entire country, which proves my point that I made last episode, where I said, how long has it been since Trump has made a statement which really set everybody's hair on fire nationally to the point where it will go on the laundry list of reasons why Trump is racist? And I said, my guess is he'll do one whenever he feels it is necessary to change the situation or to gain him political power or whatever. And it sounds like that's exactly what he did, because everyone's talking about that and the fight between the Democrats and all this. And yes, some people are saying it's racist, but the people who are saying it's racist were the same people that were saying that when he put, when he fed those fish in the koi pond, it was racist. He didn't lose anything, and he just highlighted a civil war in the Democratic Party, in the party he's running against. And yeah, you can say, Pied Piper strategies don't work. Donald Trump is not running for the 25 or 40 year history of the Republican Party down the road. He's running to be president when the votes are finished being counted 2 years from now. And then 2 years after that, 4 years after that, he can't in any way be president again. We'll see. And he doesn't care what happens then. Because, in fact, if right after he's president and he leaves, if everything goes to hell, he'd probably like that. Because then for the rest of his life, he gets to write books and go on Twitter and on TV and say, remember how everything was great when I was the president? Now everything sucks. Whose fault's that? Not mine, because I'm not the president.
If the squad is the Beatles, I think definitely, I just want to just muse on this for a second, because when you said, nobody, it's only AOC and her backup singers. No, I think it's really more like the Beatles, where AOC is John Lennon, who everybody knows. Ilhan Omar is Paul McCartney, who you also kind of remember. And then Rashida Tlaib is Ringo Starr, who you might remember if you were kind of a fan of the Beatles and you remember his strange name. And then whoever that other person is like whoever that fourth member of the Beatles was. You see?
So what you're saying is that 10 years from now or 20 years from now, AOC will be like the most famous congresswoman of her era, and Ilhan Omar will be writing a musical about It's a Wonderful Life?
Yes. So the original tweet that Donald Trump sent out was actually something that, I think we only get one opportunity per lifetime to favorably quote Richard Spencer. So I'm going to use mine right now. Which is that he was right. Trump's statement was about as racist as something you would hear from your Uncle Thanksgiving, where he said it was so interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world, if they even have a functioning government at all, now loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came? Then come back and show us how it is done. These places need your help badly. You can't leave fast enough. I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi would be very happy to quickly work out free travel arrangements. You know that Trump was in a mood when he wrote this, because this took up 3 tweets, right? This is sometimes Trump has this sort of sad, many such cases, it's just 16 different thoughts crammed into 250 characters. Yeah. And then other times it's just a stream of consciousness. And this was a stream of consciousness.
You say it was a stream of consciousness, but it seems like it was planned, would be my counter to that. But the thing that's interesting to me about it is, so the reason it's racist is because only one of them is not from this country.
Yes, only Ilhan Omar was actually born outside the US.
He kind of tarred them all. Ugh, bad use of that. I'm going to retract that. He painted them all. I'm going to retract that. He, there's no metaphor for this that does not involve the colorization of someone. He referred to them all using a aspect of their ethnicity and nationality, country of origin, that was only applicable to one of them. That was my politically correct way of saying he painted them all with the same brush. The thing about that is, Scott Adams pointed this out. Did you think Rashida Tlaib was born in America? Did you think that other one whose name you didn't know was born in America? Were you certain about AOC? Not saying that you necessarily thought any of them weren't, but it seems like a logical mistake that he might have thought one of them was. And is it really racist to make that mistake? A
little. I mean, we know it's not like any of them have accents. If they spoke with strong accents, maybe something, but AOC has a pretty standard, Brooklynite hipster accent, because
the way that Scott Adams put it was he assumed, I think it was Tlaib, he assumed, was not born here. And he said he based that not based on her name or how she looks, but based on the way she talks about the country. That in his opinion, she did not seem like someone who was, as he put it, brainwashed in American public schools. Because
well, I mean, listen, if Donald Trump wants to send Rashida Tlaib back where she came from, I'm going to say it here and now. I, too, very strongly support the idea of sending Rashida Tlaib back to whatever country she left as a refugee from. I think we should send her whole family. We should send Rashida Tlaib's entire ethnic group back to whatever Middle Eastern country they came from as soon as possible. Nothing should stop us. Right? Post haste. Right? No political considerations. There's no time to discuss it. No time to debate. Just send Rashida Tlaib and her family back to her village. I support that, Donald Trump. Thank you.
Okay.
There's another thing about this. Ilhan Omar. So Ilhan Omar, as indeed the only one who's foreign born, this gets into some, and the idea that